She's been everywhere. You know her from all of the XR events. She's here to talk about future-proofing companies with human performance. Please welcome Amy Peck.
I'm so excited to get to see all of my friends who I never get to see that often. So this is a little bit different talk than you've heard from me in the past. Human performance. What exactly is human performance? Does anyone know? Has anyone done any human performance exercises or training? One person. That's it. Well, it's a little bit different depending on who you ask, right? It is very much like what it sounds like, right? It's human performance, it's elevating our capabilities. And there are multiple frameworks, depending on who you talk to. So this one is from the Human Kinetics Journals. This is from police chiefs. And then we have this from Booz Allen, who do a lot of work with the military and civil in the US. And then Exos is a company that certainly works with the military, but they run a number of human performance programs for enterprise with the goal largely, again, as I mentioned, just sort of augmenting our capabilities and making us, lean, mean, productive machines. But when we think about it, we think about, military special forces. We think about professional athletes. We think about high-performing corporate teams. And so the word that comes to mind is elite. Like, this is very elite training for the creme de la creme of the top performers in the world. And yes, there is that. It is true.
Well, Kelly, new high-tech sports startups are embracing augmented reality and virtual reality to train athletes. VC is investing $91 million into sports technology companies so far this year and $185 million last year. That's up from just $28 million in 2019. Status Pro combines AR, VR, and player data to create training programs. It just raised over $5 million from investors, including the 49ers and Verizon's venture arm. Co-founders, former NFL pro Andrew Hawkins and Phil Jones, say COVID was a huge catalyst for adoption by a half dozen NFL teams and more.
The NFL coaches were saying, hey, I don't have my guys in one place. What can we use to help solve that problem and then also be prepared in the event that something like this happens again?
We understand exactly what it's like being on the field. So we feel like with that data point of like real life experience mixed with what we know about the technology, we've been able to take the technology, the baseline of it, and apply it in a completely different way.
Another example of this type of company, SkyTech Sport, is a skiing and snowboarding simulator to both train athletes and to teach beginners. And Zwift, which blends video games and fitness equipment, has nearly 4 million people registered to take virtual bike rides or participate in virtual bike riding competitions, kind of like esports. And while these tools are starting off more for serious athletes, companies that make them aim to bring down prices to make them more accessible to folks like us.
I really want to get onto that ski machine. That looks like fun. So when I was doing research on this topic in general, I came across really what I think are the 6 technologies that are fundamentally going to change human performance. So haptics, virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, which of course is the belle of the ball right now that everybody's talking about, BCI, brain-computer interfaces, and I added exoskeletons, which is largely off of everybody's radar for the most part, but I think it goes hand in hand, or sort of chip and skeleton, I guess, because, around augmenting our cognitive capabilities with our physical capabilities. so that's a Tesla suit, a haptic suit. So we already know the benefits of training in virtual environments and how strong the retention is. When you start adding layers of brain-computer interfaces and sort of tracking your cognitive load so you can ratchet up or ratchet down the stress, it's one of the ways that you can actually train people for an emergency. Actually, none of us know how we're going to react in an emergency until we're there. And so this is a way not only to understand how you will react in an emergency, but then start to train those reflexes to be able to react in a calm, cogent way. So relative to just what's around us now that we can use on a day-to-day basis, these are the sort of, plethora of consumer wearables. I would put smart glasses, I would include, VR headsets and AR glasses into that category as well. Medical sensors, I think some of you probably have an Oura Ring. Wearable cameras, to have more spatial awareness, not to just record everyone and feed their data into the machine, hopefully. Smart clothing, you're going to see a lot of smart clothing hitting the market. There's some available now, but really to be able to consistently monitor your vitals. And then what you want to create is a closed data loop so that that data isn't just out there in the realm. So be very, very careful, which companies you're working with. That should be in a closed loop that comes directly to your device. We've seen smart shoes with Nike and Adidas that are connected to their apps. That just gives you this incredible layer of understanding of how you personally are being able to complete an exercise. And then, of course, most of us are probably wearing smartwatches. Where it starts to get really interesting are this next evolution of implantable devices. So the ethical and philosophical implications aside, these devices are out there. I'm sure you've heard that Elon with Neuralink is going to start some clinical trials with their brain-computer interface. Smart tattoos will be available also to monitor your vitals on a regular basis. There are also healing chips that can be implanted either during or post-surgery to target a specific area of the body, so either to monitor for infection or actually to be able to help heal that particular organ post-surgery. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people now getting identity chips implanted, and while this may seem a little bit cultish, when we think about identity in these virtual realms, identity is going to be very, very important, right? Because we're going to present in different ways depending on what environment we're in, and so being able to know that you're dealing with the person you think you're dealing with is going to be absolutely critical. Right? So there's going to be this notion of being able to triangulate who you say you are in the virtual environment with your physical data, and then with the data that hopefully resides in your very own data store that is monitored by your own personal AI agent. And hopefully we'll get there. Oop, I missed one. Go back. And digital pills are really to monitor right now, to monitor compliance around medication, but those two will be able to monitor your vitals and send those to your doctor. And bio batteries, I think, are really interesting. They're used now to run pacemakers. But what's really interesting now is that you're starting to use your heartbeat and the electrical signals that your body creates naturally to actually recharge the battery. So it's starting to get very, very interesting.
You only have to think. And the lamp dims the light, and the video begins to play, all thanks to this wearable. The headband is a non-invasive brain-computer interface, or BCI. It was developed by a neurotechnology startup from France. Sensors in the headband read brainwaves and translate them into commands for electronic devices. These headphones from a US startup claim they can tell their wearer when they focus best to help them work more efficiently. The electrodes which measure the brainwaves are located in the headphone padding. Electric activity in the brain indicates concentration levels. The measured data is processed in an app to show wearers when they are able to work most productively. Music to fit your current mood and alerts for when you need a break are also included.
When Nathan Copeland suffered an accident in 2004, he was left with tetraplegic paralysis. But thanks to a brain-computer interface, Nathan can now move a prosthetic arm. Electrodes in his brain read his brainwaves and send signals to move the prosthesis. The reason why we are able to control electronic devices by the power of thought alone is because our brains use electronic signals. Now, when Nathan thinks a specific movement, the computer recognizes it and moves the prosthesis accordingly. Through the 2 other chips in his somatosensory cortex, he is also able to feel with his prosthesis.
So I think you can see why I'm becoming completely obsessed with this whole line of technology. You combine that with exoskeletons, especially for people who have, significant physical impairment, where, we're not even talking about human performance. We're just talking about enabling day-to-day physicality, right? And so this has fantastic implications as well on the accessibility side and also on the human performance side. So with the slide I had before, I added another kind of framework that is put out by Dr. Andrew Huberman. If you don't know who he is, I highly recommend listening to his podcast. He runs a neuroscience lab at Stanford. He's absolutely brilliant. In his podcast, he also lists a lot of resources that you can use in your day-to-day. And so we know why we want to improve human performance in a military construct, right? We're sending soldiers into harm's way. We want to make sure that they are prepared to the highest level. We know why professional athletes need this level of training. And we know why we want this in a corporate environment. And a lot of the work in the corporate scheme of things is around teamwork and leadership. But understanding the mechanism and the way to really bring teams together. And my belief is it's not limited to this sort of, top 5% of the population, right? This is for everybody. And so I want to look at this on a day-to-day basis, right? And I really do believe this, that human performance enhancement is for everyone. I'm going to give you a hint. You need to remember this statement for later. So I took all of the frameworks that I did some research on, and I kind of distilled them down to some high-level topics. And human performance is really also about a holistic approach to elevating our capabilities. And so, you see mindset. Mindset is probably one of the ways in which we do this kind of training, mostly in a corporate construct. And then I married some of that with Dr. Huberman and several other scientists and researchers around the world. And came up with this type of a framework that I believe can be much more personal. Now, there's definitely some things in here. You'll see words like technical and tactical and biodynamics and things that do come out of kind of the corporate realm. But this is a shift from someone giving you a human performance training exercise to do, to actually deciding for yourself that you want to take a holistic approach to your own wellness and to your own well-being, but also to elevate your capabilities. And so these are just a few of the ways. I'm not going to go through every single one. I do want to call out a few on the mindset piece. Identity, again, it's not only is it going to be important for us to be able to verify who we are, and proof of humanity to actually verify that we're not a bot or an AI agent, but as we're presenting in these different ways, we can change our appearance and physicality. So having a mindset of being able to kind of create those versions of yourself, we're actually going to be able to elevate ourselves and come up with this aspirational version of ourselves that, if we do this right, won't remain aspirational, right? We elevate our abilities. Empathy is another really, really key factor in all of this. And some of the programs, talk about this specifically, but there's not as much direct training on it. Social, we know, post-COVID, I think it was the first AWE post-COVID, we were all almost in tears getting to see each other in person for the first time in so long. And so it's important to remember that, right? And stay connected with people. And the last word there is respect. We really need to have more respect for other people. We do not live in a binary world, right? As recent events might have us believe, right? And what's happening in Israel and what continues to happen in Ukraine, these are not binary issues. We live in shades of gray. So instead of looking at others being wrong or having the wrong opinion, what are the commonalities? What are the ways in which we can all take a step forward? That will actually elevate all of us. And I'll talk about a few little hacks that I do relative to each of these during the day. So around movement, I have a little alarm that goes off every couple of hours. I set it in my calendar also. I get up 3 times a day. Well, actually get up, I have a standing desk now, so I'm already standing. But I leave the house when I'm home or wherever I'm working. And I go for a walk, just for 5 minutes, like around the block. It's not even about being gone for a long time. It's just about resetting a little bit. I do the same thing in a work block of an hour. I set it at 20-minute intervals. And this serves a couple of different utilities, right? So it keeps me on task, keeps me focused. But I also, on the right side, on the recovery side, it reminds me to just take a deep breath. So I take like 3 deep breaths. This sounds, first of all, I am from New York. This is not what we do in New York. You can tell I've been living in California too long. However, I would argue that being in New York, you really need to do this and reset. At the top of that on the recovery list is sleep. How many of you used to say or still say, I'll sleep when I'm dead? Anyone ever said that? You might get your wish if you're not careful. Sleep is incredibly important to overall health, right? And so this is another hack. Everybody has a sleep cycle of roughly 90 minutes. So for a week, time, how long it takes you to fall asleep, so usually around 20 minutes. And then time, how long you're asleep naturally, don't set an alarm. And then you divide that by 90 minutes, and that is your sleep cycle. I'm right on 90 minutes, so don't wake yourself up in the middle of a sleep cycle. Do you ever wake up sometimes and you're just groggy the whole day? It's because you've woken yourself up from a very, very sound sleep. You want to wake yourself up, and there are apps that will help you do this. Oh, the last thing I do want to talk about before we move on is just getting out into nature. Right? Again, this sounds very like, how does this have to do with corporate wellness? If you want really high functioning teams at your company and you want to keep your workforce working well, and you want to attract new talent, you need to have a mechanism to help them achieve these goals. But for you individually, the more that you do this, the more you are in control of this. It's very different than doing a program at work. So let's put the pieces together. I had to use this image. So this is a concept that shows up in a lot of, I hate to say self-help books, but self-realization books. And it seems really, really simple, but it's an important thing to remember that everything is a choice. I hear a lot of people saying, well, you know, my boss does this, and you know, this team is always doing this, or these people are taking my budget. And it's this very outward approach to what's happening in their lives. You can't change what other people are going to do, but you do have 100% control about how you react to it. And if you move from reactive, which has all kinds of history, there are things that you can't control that start from, you know, your parents when you were a child that become triggers. And so your behavior is reactive in those situations, and that doesn't necessarily help you. It doesn't help you in business, it doesn't help you in your personal life. So all of these exercises about centering you and being present, actually there is a business reason for it, there's a personal reason for it, is just take that moment and take a deep breath and decide who you want to be at that moment before you react to outside stimuli. And the next one is a little bit of a double-edged sword, because while on the one hand, I want to say embrace technology, on the other, I see you, put your phones down. And so what I mean by embrace technology is not be glued to your phone every minute, but learn about technology. Like if any of those technologies I showed earlier, if there are other technologies, like I'm not an expert in BCI by any means, or even human performance by any means, but I'm really curious about it. So for the last 3 months, I've been doing a deep dive, and I'm gonna continue because I find it fascinating. So find things that are interesting to you, because if we don't have an opinion about this technology, other people are going to define how this technology becomes part of our lives. And you're looking at things like BCI and exoskeletons and whether or not the singularity is or is not inevitable, which I'm not that worried about. I think that there is an inevitable piece to it, but there's a lot of different paths that could take. And so the reason we need to elevate our cognitive abilities and our physical abilities is so we have an opinion on what this looks like. And we can have agency in what this looks like in the future. And connect. We're all here, I see a lot of great conversations going on. And then bring empathy and respect in. And this is another really simple, easy thing to do. Just give someone a heartfelt, don't make it up, compliment. Give them a compliment. And you create this butterfly effect, because now you've elevated them just a little bit. And then maybe they'll go and elevate somebody else just a little bit. Right? If you're tired of reading the headlines, let's do the small things that we can control. And exercise your creativity. Every single person in this room and in the world, and Cecilia's here in the front, she exudes creativity. We are creative beings. I mean, think when you were a child, you could sing, you could dance, you could paint. I'm not saying very well, saying you could do all those things. But this is a key component of how we kind of visualize the future. This is something I do. I don't do it daily, but I do a lot of future visioning work in a corporate construct, which is a version of this. But just kind of fantasizing about what your perfect world 25 years from now might look like. And sort of making that part of your day-to-day or week-to-week, just things that you do, right? Starting to paint this picture. It's not that that's necessarily going to come true, but it opens up new neural pathways that helps you think about everything differently. We talked about exercise your body. That's obvious. I've been told I need to start lifting weights. And so I can't use the excuse that I'm going to get bulky. And I'm like, you're not going to it takes a lot of weight to get bulky. You're going to be fine. But take care of your body. It sounds obvious. The last thing is just rest and recharge. All right, so here's the question. Who can leverage human performance enhancement? Come on, go. Thank you, Rupert.
I mean, it's everyone in the whole entire world. I mean, everyone.
I wanted to make sure you would remember that part. So I really believe that the possibilities are infinite. And when we talk about building an aspirational version of our lives, if we do that, and then we take care of ourselves, it's not aspirational anymore. We reach that goal. And then we can continue and we can continue. Because the truth is we're limited only by our own beliefs and our belief systems, which are carefully crafted by our parents, by school, by our culture, by our communities. But we don't have to go forward in the same way we've done in the past. And we can really leverage this technology to change not only our own wellness, but outcomes more broadly in the world. So thanks so much.